Let's begin this morning with some serious news. The war in the Middle East, where the fighting shows no signs of letting up. Iran has launched more attacks across the region, hitting a major oil refinery in Kuwait for a second consecutive day. Meanwhile, Israel is continuing to hit the Iranian regime. The IDF says it has killed the spokesperson for Iran's Revolutionary Guard in an airstrike. But Israel says it will now hold off on attacking Iran's gas fields.
Well, I'll say two things. Fact number one, Israel acted alone against the Slawiya gas compound. Fact number two, President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding out.
For more on this, we're joined by CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio, who's joining us from London. Ramy, amid the fighting, we understand that a U.S. F-35 fighter jet has made an emergency landing. This is, of course, one of the most significant pieces of hardware in the U.S. arsenal. It is the next-gen aircraft. It's supposed to be undetectable by radar. What can you tell us happened?
Absolutely, Vlad. What we know is that this happened in Iranian airspace, that this was at least revealed yesterday, Thursday, and that pilot was flying a combat mission someplace over the country, over Iran. That info came to us from U.S. CENTCOM. But what we don't know is where that happened exactly. But we did get an idea yesterday when we were covering that press conference with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the head of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane. General Kane said that the military was penetrating further east into Iran, hitting underground storage sites, hitting drone sites, and hitting missile sites. So perhaps it was something along that nature. But what CBS News has learned, coming from U.S. military officials, is that F-35 was able to fly out of Iranian airspace and then back to a U.S. airbase in the region. That airbase wasn't identified, but there are several air hubs across the region: Qatar, Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, as well as Kuwait. And we also understand from CENTCOM that pilot is safe and in stable condition.
We're glad that he or she is safe. Ramy, it seems like we're entering a different phase of this fighting with a lot of oil infrastructure being attacked. What's the latest on the fighting in the region at this hour?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we have been seeing those fuel prices rise for oil and gas. Day 21 here. This morning in the region, Iran did launch more drones, missiles. By our count, at least 4 of its Gulf neighbors, Dubai, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain, all either issuing alerts or reporting that they did intercept incoming drones and missiles. And to your point, Adriana, they're home to U.S. military installations, but they're also home to oil and gas sites. And for the second time in 2 days, there you are on your screen right there, Iranian drones hit that same oil refinery in Kuwait called Mina al-Ahmadi. It's the second biggest refinery in the country. A company saying that operations there are partially disrupted. Iran, though, also keeping up its attacks on Israel. And our CBS News team in the country, in Israel, has told us that there were 8 barrages of missiles coming in from Iran. Most of those were aimed at northern Israel. Haifa, Jerusalem mentioned there, but no significant damage reported. And then again, also this morning, Israel's military launching more strikes on Iran. Has been every day, targeting the infrastructure of what it says is a terror regime. Our partners at the BBC are reporting that Israel believes that Iran still has more than 150 functioning missile launchers and still several hundred ballistic missiles. And so that is why we see the bombing continuing.
All right, Ramy Inocencio reporting from London for us. Ramy, thank you.
Of course.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was asked by lawmakers about U.S. objectives in Iran and how they relate to Israel. So take a listen to what she had to say, and then we're also going to play what the Israeli ambassador to the UN told us yesterday.
What does the intelligence community assess Israel's goals in this war to be? And are those goals aligned with the goals of the United States?
I'm thinking carefully here about what can be said in this open setting versus a closed setting.
Are the goals aligned?
The objectives that have been laid out by the president are different from the objectives that have been laid out by the Israeli government.
And how do they differ?
We can see through the operations that the Israeli government has been focused on disabling the Iranian leadership, and taking out several members, obviously beginning with the Ayatollah and the supreme leader. And they continue to focus on that effort.
How does that differ from our goals?
The president has stated that his objectives are to destroy Iran's ballistic missile launching capability, their ballistic missile production capability, and their Navy, the IRGC Navy, and mine-laying capability.
If the U.S. said to Israel, please stop tomorrow, would you listen?
We coordinate everything with the United States. You know, we are allies.
So that's
All right, CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand joins us now from the White House to talk more about this. So how are we to make sense of these diverging objectives between the United States and Israel, Natalie?
Hey, Vlad, Adriana, there have been some mixed messages on this point. From the start of this operation nearly 3 weeks ago, the president and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have made clear this is a joint operation. But we also have seen the U.S. focus on military targets in Iran and Israeli forces focus on leaders of the regime, leadership targets. And as we've seen, a number of them have been killed, including the Ayatollah. So this came up yesterday during this hearing with DNI Gabbard, and she said quite clearly that the objectives are different. CIA Director John Ratcliffe also jumped in and said that President Trump's objective of Operation Epic Fury did not include regime change. Netanyahu, though, in his most recent statements, reiterated that a goal of Israel does remain to try to create conditions, he said, for the Iranian people to grasp their freedom and, quote, control their destiny. Now, President Trump has previously said, told reporters when asked, that he wants to be involved in leadership, choosing Iran's leadership. But he's also sidestepped questions about what happens if the regime remains in place. And that's where some lawmakers have really questioned, well, what is the end game and how does this come to a resolution? During that same exchange with Gabbard yesterday during the hearing, she was asked if Israel would be supportive of the U.S. trying to make a deal with Iran, and she said she didn't know. She wasn't privy to those deliberations. But it is important to note the Prime Minister Netanyahu did note that President Trump had asked him to stop attacking Iranian energy sites after that attack on South Pars, and he said, we're holding out.
It does beg the question, how do you have a joint mission of this scale and not have the same objectives? But Natalie, let's talk about the end game, which doesn't seem to be clear at this point. The Pentagon is reportedly asking for $200 billion to fund this war in Iran, even though the administration is saying that we're winning and it's almost over.
That's why it signals that we don't know what the end game is, because why do you need $200 billion, which, by the way, is more than the United States has spent to help fund Ukraine's defense of their territories against Russian aggression.
So what is the president saying about this?
Yeah, both the president and Defense Secretary Hegseth were asked about this figure, more than $200 billion. They didn't dispute it, indicated they would be going to Congress, but also talked about needing this money beyond Iran to replenish stockpiles into the future. Arweja Jang asked the president directly. Take a listen to the exchange.
If the war is almost over, why is the Pentagon going to ask Congress for an additional $200 billion?
Well, we're asking for a lot of reasons beyond even what we're talking about in Iran. This is a very volatile world, and the military equipment, the power of some of this weaponry is unthinkable. You don't even want to know about it. Oh, you could end this thing in 2 seconds if you wanted to, but we are being very judicious.
Now, Congress is going to have to approve the money. Democrats, of course, pushing back. Republican supporters of the war, staunch supporters like Lindsey Graham, they are saying whatever it takes to finish this. He's supportive of that. But some other Republicans are striking a more cautious tone. Lisa Murkowski, for example, she's calling for open hearings on Iran, saying that before she approves funding, she wants to be able to answer some of the questions that her constituents in Alaska are asking her.
All right, Natalie. We always, so it's interesting. We applaud the White House staff for the upkeep of the White House grounds, Natalie. But sometimes we wonder, are they just doing that on purpose because they know you're doing a live shot?
There was a big box truck that backed up behind you, Natalie. You probably saw it.
I could see and hear. This place is going 24/7. They really never stop from the early morning hours.
Well, they're going to renovate that East Room.
That's right. Good to see it. And good to see you, Natalie. Thank you. All right, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency says the U.S. must at some point resume talks with Iran about its nuclear capabilities. He spoke with Face the Nation's Margaret Brennan while in Washington to meet with the Trump administration officials about the war.
The U.S. Director of National Intelligence told Congress yesterday that Iran's enrichment program was obliterated, that the U.S. has seen no efforts to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you have any indication that the new supreme leader would want a weapons program?
Well, I don't disagree with that. We don't see major activity, which is logical because there is a military campaign ongoing. Whatever you're not going to start, bringing cranes and workers.
But they weren't doing it in the lead up to the war either, according to the Secretary of State.
Maybe. By the way, what we have is satellite imagery.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So at least the IAEA, maybe others have other technical means or personal means to check what is happening. As far as we are concerned, we haven't seen activity. But as I was saying, a lot has survived. They have the capabilities, they have the knowledge, they have the industrial ability to do that. This is why we need to go back to a negotiating table. It's going to be needed.